Um, Before we get started, committee members, Revocate has DM'd me saying that we can do his hearing immediately after this, if we so choose. Mr. Chairman.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, the PMC needs to be given his oath prior to us beginning.
Yes, that was my point of order as well.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I motion for the floor. Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
I am PMC Gamer 24.
Thank you. And Mr. PMC, what is or was your position within DOS?
Well, my position was I was a member of the advisory board. That was my position.
Okay, and for the record, what experiences do you have within DOS and the UN that makes you qualified to speak before this committee today?
Well, basically, regarding the US, I have been ambassador to Asia. And regarding the UN, I have been Secretary General and President of the Security Council. And I have been also a diplomat. So the good thing is that I have seen DOS in two perspectives and in other secretariats, not only Cole Perfidius one, but also Gray Holic, Warguard, Travel Baggins, and Astronaut 2020. All of that I have seen and I have witnessed events.
Wonderful. Could you just give me a brief summary of what you observed from an outside perspective when you were serving in the UN and how you saw DOS as a whole?
Well, to be honest, in my perspective, I think we lack trust between the Department of State and the nations. I'm not saying that we don't have influence. The US has influence in nations, and they are an important and essential part. I'm not denying that. But each time, for example, during this is more apparent in Cole's secretariat. During Cole's tenure, we have been losing trust in some nations, and even we have lost prestige in some scenarios.
In what way have we lost prestige? What has DOS done that has caused this view to change?
Well, to be honest, firstly, creating NATO has been a big mistake because, firstly, and again, this is not my words. These were the words of Secretary Warguard when we were debating on the Security Council regarding these types of organizations. We were saying that they are basically useless. They basically die. Like for example, NATO. For example, we don't heard about NATO like a while ago. And CISA, which was like the Russian equivalent, we didn't hear from it. So apart from NATO, I would say that some personal problems got involved in the business of ensuring a good diplomatic, I will say, procedures. Because, for example, some hate to some individuals have allowed to this prestige to go away in some sense.
Okay. In your opinion, what could be one thing right now that DOS could do to help begin repairing the prestige and the relationship that the US maintains within the United Nations?
I mean, I think they started repairing on that because I told them when I was advising them, I told them to host events because it's important that we get close to the nations. diplomacy it's a process of trust. It's important that we make them trust to us, but also that they trust. I mean, like it's mutual. We need to make it mutual. I mean, I'm not saying that we need to bow down to that country because they need to respect our laws, they need to respect our regulations, but we need to ensure that we have a mutual understanding and that when we have any, let's say, misunderstandings, because nations like, for example, there's a situation and then there might be some misunderstandings, then using communication we can solve the problems. So that's important that we have good communication. That's basically all, and that we don't overstep with our problems.
Okay. Thank you. I may have more questions later, but for the time being, Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor.
Mr. Chairman. I request the floor. All right, thank you very much, Mr. PMC Gamer. I have a couple questions for you. For my first one is, do you believe that the U.S. is a major cause in recent UN inactivity?
Well, regarding U.S. activity, like for example, I will say that like maybe some months ago, I will say that description will fit some months ago. But if the Department of State host, I'm not saying like a lot of events per month, but if they keep hosting events, like for example Denmark hosted when they were in the UN, they hosted like a lot of events, and that's interesting because I mean not all events. It's important that we create an atmosphere. That's why the events are there, so that we can create an atmosphere adequate for the nations, so that they can feel trusted, and we can also feel trusted in them. So we can create that mutual thing. We become closer to them, and by that, we don't need to do complicated things. But regarding UN inactivity, the US, I mean, regarding proposing legislation, they have access to many channels to propose changes. But the problem is that the United States is not the. I mean, to change UN inactivity, it must come from the Secretariat, not from the
Thank
United
you.
States. I mean, the United States can help the Secretariat. They can do that, but the main changes needs to come from the Secretariat of the UN.
Okay. And as you said, speaking of Denmark, you said they did host a lot of events, that's going to be my next topic. With Denmark leaving the UN and seeing like the US was almost pushing them out and celebrating them leaving, do you think this will have a major effect on the UN's future activity, as they were a host of major events and had robust activity in the General Assembly?
Well, to be honest, Denmark was the reflects the past of the Department of State. They reflected how politics should be done in regarding the international arena. Because, for example, they did a lot of events. They contributed a lot to UN activity, and they also contributed a lot to the chambers, especially to the Security Council. Because, for example, one time when we didn't have an agenda, they were so committed to international security and international themes that Denmark proposed a debate and we debated. So Denmark is a tremendous privilege that the UN has lost, and I think we will notice the changes, if not this month, maybe in a couple, maybe in 1 or 2 months, we will notice it. So yeah, that's what we will notice.
Okay, and with Denmark leaving and the US almost seeming like happy they were leaving, even though they were contributing a lot, do you think this will lead other nations to possibly lose trust in us and not work with us uh, with treaties or military engagements?
That will be a possible scenario. That will be a possible scenario, yes. But the problem with the leaving Denmark is that we will lose trust. But I don't think it will affect us long. I mean, if we start abandoning like a toxic environment of taking personal problems into the department, then that will be good. But because the problem with because there was problems between Denmark and there was some discussions. The problem is that we don't need to over exaggerate things, and we need to, as I said, we need to make that atmosphere of trust. We need to make nations feel like they trust us, but also we need to know if we can trust them. So we might lose trust, which is something that worries me a lot.
Okay, and final question. Do you believe that Ambassador of the United Nations for the US, Quad Ash 2281, his statement 2 days ago about Denmark leaving was hostile towards them due to the tensions between us?
Well, regarding the leaving of Denmark, firstly, they decided to leave due to a referendum. They hosted a democratic referendum, and a majority chose yes, so they left. I don't know why is this statement made. I don't know, but I think it's an unnecessary statement because Denmark has done a lot for the UN, and this is the problem of what I said of taking disputes into another level without addressing them, because it becomes the cornerstone of our policies, and at the end we lose prestige, and with that we lose decency, which is something we don't need to lose here. And to end up, so that I don't speak a lot, basically, to sum it up, the leaving of Denmark, I mean, they have done a lot, and I hope the Department of State recognizes it and stops with the beef that they had with Denmark.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield the floor.
Mr. Chairman. I request the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, first of all, PMC, thank you for coming for this committee today to answer some of our questions, and we do appreciate it. My first question is when you were ambassador to Asia, obviously, I can speak from experience. I believe being an ambassador is one of the fun positions, especially within this community. So my question is, when you were an ambassador, did you have a freedom to obviously arrange state visits when you please, or were you more micromanaged during your time as an ambassador?
Well, regarding my experience as ambassador to Asia, I am just gonna say, just to sum up how we done the meetings. I arranged them sometimes I reach the nations and we arrange set meetings, which is, for example, in the same context. We had a war with North Korea at that time. So, the good thing is that I was well informed because at that time I was also president of the Security Council, and I had an outlook on both perspectives. So that's an interesting time. But I will say I had freedom to a certain extent
Yeah, thank you.
regarding the meetings.
From my perspective, I don't believe the Department of State have done a lot of it. About that. From my opinion, I haven't seen a lot of state visits from the Department of State in recent times. I believe that's because of Sterling Joma from the Department of State, or is that just because of recent inactivity of the UN?
To be honest, this is because we are losing trust, and this is the consequences of abandoning policies, which, by the way, they were under previous secretariats such as Wargord or Gray Halleck. That when we started abandoning those policies, nations don't wanted to come to us. But also, this is to clear it out. I'm not blaming all entirely on the US, but the problem is that I don't see the Department of State concerned on UN affairs. I mean, I'm not saying it like they are not concerned, because there are some ambassadors and representatives from the department that I know that they want to make changes and they are respectable men. But the number has decreased. That affected the DSS, which, by the way, is considered by the diplomats the most elite protective service in the UN. Like, I talked with diplomats and they told me PMC, this is DSS does a great job, and that is mostly what I get. And also what I get sometimes when I talk with diplomats, they said PMC, when Astro was here, 2024 was the peak year. 2024 was the best, but like right now, I don't see motivations to come to the US. I don't see motivations of nations. What I see sometimes is criticism to the department and to some members.
Yeah. And I do applaud obviously DSS as well, because they do work very hard to make sure they protect their diplomats. I thank every DSS agent for their service. But moving on, if I just give me a second there. Trying to find that sheet. I do apologize. I've completely lost my sheet of questions. For the time being, I'm going to yield the floor back to the chair. I will have some questions later. But thank you for them 2 questions, BMC. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I motion for the floor once again. Request the floor. Thank you. Mr. PMC, I only have one question for you at this time, but what was your initial reaction to former Secretary Cole Perfidius resigning after these hearings were requested?
To be honest, there has been beef between the department, well, not the whole department, but some members of the department and Congress because of celebrating these congresses. Some people said that this was to content said members because they didn't have anything to do. But I mean, I don't have a problem with the hearings because this is basically Congress' job, which is basically holding the executive accountable and try to find answers to problems to help the executive. So I don't have any problem. And I think the secretary recently was nervous when I communicated my resignation. I'm not gonna comment a lot on that moment, but I'm just gonna say that he was a bit nervous. Yes, that can be seen. I mean, I remember our conversation, my conversation with the secretary, with the former secretary, regarding my resignation and the hearings. But I will say that sums up the thing.
Without going into too much detail, would there be any particular reason why he would be nervous about these hearings?
To be honest, I don't know. Because he asked me if I hated, but I don't hate anyone. I mean, I'm just gonna disclose this if I can very briefly. I don't have hate to any member of DOS because DOS have professional diplomats. I mean, because before we had a gap about finding experienced diplomats, but now the US has professional diplomats, so that's not my concern. The problem is that he was getting nervous because the problem is that Mr. Cole Perfidius had beef with likely Mr. Owner, the former Secretary General. So I will say that and also because that fear of hating me, I will say that that contributed to his nervousness, and also when when I was having my conversation about my resignation. I swear this is the last thing. When we were talking about it, he was asking. I mean, I remember. So one thing that he said to me was that he feared I was getting brainwashed, and yeah, that's basically it. I felt the secretary more paranoid at the time.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. I request the floor again. Thank you. Obviously, I just want to go back of you talking about NATO and how it shouldn't be a thing within our UN. Do you believe that's had a negative impact on military, obviously joint operations or joint trainings? Because I can remember previously that a lot of US military agreements with another nation, it wasn't just a document or a piece of paper, it was something of show for friendship as well. And since with NATO now in place, that kind of takes that away. Do you think that's had an effect, obviously, on getting joint military trainings with other nations?
The problem is that NATO has led to the downfall of this because basically, to be honest, with NATO, I haven't seen any I mean, we all know that military organizations are formed by a legal charter that's established them, but I haven't seen transparency from NATO, and I haven't seen the military profit from this. And NATO has contributed basically to not proportionate activity for the military, because before, when we weren't on NATO, on previous secretariats such as War Guard, we had a lot of, as I think you mentioned, we had a lot of mutual defense. I think they were called mutual defense pacts or mutual defense treaties. With that, with only that, we have our worries solved, and the military was active, because I remember when I was diplomat in Spain, we have signed a lot of these pacts alongside friendship treaties, which I have seen a few of them signed compared to other secretariats, which seems a bit worrying to me.
Thank you. And obviously, just talking about DOS events, obviously there hasn't been a lot from my knowledge. Do you think that's kind of lost the law in the United States? And what I mean by that, do you not think people look at the United States now as a how do I word this? Well, what I mean by glow, because I can remember previously as a diplomat, I used to love coming to EC and obviously going to the different buildings, going to the White House. I felt that was more of an honour and took more into account of, meeting the world leaders as well. I thought from experience that meant more than just, a typical state visit, and it seems that has started to fade away. Do you think with the United States not doing that much often, other nations don't feel a great connection with the United States no more?
I think I agree with that statement, because basically we lost. That's why we lost our prestige, because we started to ignore nations. We started to, because as you said before, diplomats, we invited them, we included them in our events, we made events for them. We basically ensure that there was a mutual trust between us, between the US and the other diplomats and the other diplomats in the US. And we were contendent with our regulations, because sometimes there were some things regarding a diplomat trying to kill a vice president, for example. That's something I have from memory. And yeah, before it was a privilege, but now there isn't any privilege, because we don't include them. We don't make them feel included in the US.
Yeah, and obviously, it's very known within this community that the Department of State sometimes struggle to find and fill ambassador positions. Do you think that's had an effect on these events and why they're fading away, or do you think it's more of an administrative issue within the Department of State on why these events are starting to fade away?
Well, to be honest, finding diplomats, it's difficult, because finding someone, because diplomacy is a responsibility. It's a huge responsibility, even though people sometimes seem like it isn't, but it's a big responsibility. And sometimes finding a good person to not say be good, but to be committed to it, to act good on it, it's difficult. And regarding the effect of this in the US events, I would say it's a combination of both. Regarding administrative, which is basically how the secretary wants basically how they want to their policies to be implemented regarding how relations and the personnel. Even though now we have good personnel, like for example, our deputy ambassador to the United Nations, he's a good man. But I will say, that yes, this has had an effect. But I will say that the secretary could have started to address it.
Thank you for that. So would you say, where was it? My mind's just gone blank. I do know what I was going to say. Give me a second. Yes. So, do you think the Department of State struggles to trust people or giving them the opportunity? Because, like you said, it is very hard to find someone to obviously represent the United States in certain regions. But, you're never going to know if they're good without giving them the opportunity. So do you think the Department of State has a struggle to trust people, to give them the opportunities to be an ambassador?
Yeah, yes, I think that the Department of State should have given them like a mentorship program. Like, I know this might sound revolutionary and first time, but I think it's better, like, for example, for diplomats, like, we train them, we school them, we start building a program so that when they arrive, we make people know how to do it. Because basically, I would say that idea that I said, that would be very helpful for the US. Training people, because not only they train people to become diplomats, but they improve themselves. They can host mock state visits, mock events, even real events, because that's how we do it. If we put a program, this is a suggestion. If we put an opportunity, because more like a program is an opportunity. If we put an opportunity for future interested diplomats to have an event and say, hey, during this event, you're going to be the Secretary of State and you're going to meet the King of Mexico. If you give them the chance, then maybe a person from the Department of State will notice, and maybe he can give employment to him or her. So it's a way not only for the person but also for the Department of State for considering people apart from the traditional application process.
So obviously you said obviously maybe add a program to the Department of State. When you're an advisor, did you recommend to the Secretary of State or someone of high rank with the Department of State, or possibly adding this during your time as Department of State, if it would help fill ambassador positions?
To be honest, this is something that I have recently came up now. I mean, I should have said it. I'm conscious about that. But I will say that, for example, I would say that a lot of I didn't know at the time of people that could be a decent diplomat. But during the recent times, let's say 2 months, I have met people, even including I think they recruited one new person for Asian, and he's doing a good job. So shout out to Korata, he's doing a good job there. Anyways, yes, I think the Department of State. I mean, I started to reflect this yesterday. I think that we need to not also the traditional application process, but also something more interactive, which is I think something that we need.
Okay, and obviously the Department of State, correct me if I'm wrong, has like an Office of Public Affairs. Have they not supported the Department of State of finding events other than tours? Because I think that's a common theme within the Department of State. They like to host tours. Has the Public Affairs Office within that Department of State, have you seen during your time there if they've recommended other events to maybe change things within the community that might be interesting to others?
I mean, the only events apart from what you said done is the Halloween event, and I don't know if they'll do a Christmas time, but I hope they do it. But the only thing that I have seen, the Department of Public Affairs is doing some tours. I think I hosted one tour because the head of public affairs at the time couldn't do it, so I said, "Hey, I'll cover." And I toured the US. I toured people around the US, and I think what was done is a tour and some, a tour and the gala of Halloween. And I think it was, there was a press conference done, but the transcript, because I remember before that, when a press conference was done in the US, there was a transcript released, and they forgot to release it. So I think that's the only things I remember they have done.
Lovely. And this is my final question. I do believe we have kept you a while. I do appreciate you answering our questions. Obviously, with the resignation of Secretary Claude Perfidius, the President, Private Teddy, did appoint Temple as the acting secretary. Do you believe one of his main priorities now is to rebuild a relationship between the United States and the acting Secretary General, so there's more trust between the UN and the United States, so previous issues between the US and the UN Secretariat can be pushed aside and we can start a new journey?
I mean, for the new Secretary of State, I hope Tempor has a good luck with his position. But I don't think it's a priority. I think it's one of the things they are addressing. I'm not denying that, or they plan to address. But I mean, Cool Chicken. He makes. What is he here? Well, all right. Cool Chicken. The problem with this Secretary General that we have, he's only a transitional one, so he's gonna be like for a month, maybe only December and until the elections in January. So, but I hope that US helps the Secretary General and vice versa. I hope that, because I haven't seen that. I hope to see it. I hope to see that.
Right.
And I hope that happens.
Right, this is just a follow-up question. If you don't believe that would be one of the new priorities of the Secretary, what do you think his main priority should be within the Department of State going forward?
Well, what I think his priority will be is firstly, I mean, what I will do is firstly, I will get rid of NATO. Because that's a huge waste of thing. And again, the uselessness of these types of organizations were said by the then Secretary Wargard, and this was a consensus that we had at the time, not only the US but also the whole chamber, which is a miracle. So also we need to make people trust us, and with that, I bring up my idea of the program that I mentioned. It's important that apart from the application process, I'm not denying that. I'm simply proposing a plan B, not a replacement, but maybe another route, not also focusing on applications, but also practical things. Because in an interview, you cannot examine a person fully if you don't put them into a test. And I think it's important that we give people responsibilities because that's what comes with power. Responsibilities. And I think that apart from dissolving the OS, the NATO, and implementing this program, it's rebuilding trust. It's basically making events. It doesn't have to be a gala, maybe a tour around the city, maybe a gala, for example, for Christmas, since we are approaching Christmas, maybe a Christmas gala with disguises about Christmas will be great. It would be great. Maybe some tours around some. I think there was some job fairs before. Yeah, job fairs that we hosted here. It's important that we make events to make them feel comfortable in DC, so that they can come in DC and they come on their own. It's important that we build them, we welcome them, and we build a trust with them, and we can start. And this is the most important part, and I'm gonna this. It's important that when we have an issue, it's important that we resolve it on the channel, on the communications channel. We go, we address. Imagine said nation have said problem. We address it in communications because communications is key. The trust is built with communications because maybe there was a controversy and there was a misunderstanding and we need. So that's the keys for fixing the OS, in my opinion.
Lovely. Before I yield the chair, once again, I do want to thank you, PMC, for attending this hearing and giving this committee a lot of answers. You've really answered a lot of our queries and our concerns we've had prior to this hearing, and we do appreciate you coming here. And I yield back to the chair.
Mr. Ranking Member.
Thank you. Before we continue, just want to let everyone know JDC had to attend to something, so I will be presiding over for the remaining of this hearing, and if we do Revocate's hearing after this, I will also be presiding over that one. Billy Bob, Representative, I ask you to move in so we're all nice and even, and you are recognized.
Thank you. I request the floor.
And the floor is yours.
All right, Mr. PMC, I just have one question for you. That's it, one. There was ongoing speculation in former Secretary Kopriev's resignation speech, as well as former Secretary General Mr. Leckley Owner's his resignation address of wrongdoing towards the U.S. and then alleged wrongdoing by the U.S. of removing Mr. Leckley Owner from his position as Secretary General. Do you believe that if an investigation is launched and information is found that the U.S. did involve in wrongdoing, such personnel should be punished for this?
Well, I think if believe me if I'm wrong, before I start answering that, we are talking about the resignation of likely Mr. Owner, right? The Secretary
Yes.
General.
Yes. And whether if U.S. parties were involved from the Department of State, whether they should be investigated and punished or not.
I mean, the State Department was involved in pressuring likely Mr. Owner to resign. That's a fact. I mean, I cannot deny that because I'm under oath. So that's a fact because, I mean, I'm not gonna criticize because basically, if you don't like the Secretary General, you can do, we call it a motion of no confidence. So basically, if you don't have confidence on the Secretary General, you can perfectly I mean, it's stated by the. I think it's stated by the charter and by the rules of procedure of the General Assembly. So you can, I mean, you're able to do it. But I think the problem is that I think that it shouldn't have been done. It shouldn't have been done. But I mean, my service was to advise. So so um, I will say that they shouldn't have done it. And to be clear, the US was involved in pressuring likely Mr. Owner to resign, because if they have presented the motion of no confidence, I mean, there might be a chance if it passed, but I don't think that a motion of no confidence would have passed realistically, because likely Mr. Owner has done. I'm not gonna say. I mean, every Secretary General has his goods and don'ts, his goods and bads. But he has done a lot to improve the UN. He has contributed a lot, and he has my deepest respect. So yes, there was, and to be clear, there was beef. And when I mean beef, I mean there was fighting, when disputes between Colin Perfidius and likely Mr. Owner.
Do you believe that this was the sole motive for him to be pressured out?
Well, to be honest, apart from the infighting that I mentioned, there was because basically when I looked at the conversations between Denmark and the US, because they had a dispute about this resignation, they mentioned the closure of the Department of Outreach of the Secretariat, which is basically the department tasked with finding nations, which was closed under then Secretary General, likely Mr. Owner. I mean, I'm not gonna judge him for that, because basically, I mean, he does what he finds best for his department and for his secretariat. I mean, it's said on the charter that the secretary is composed by the departments decided by the Secretary General. So that's not my problem. I don't need to judge that. But the problem is that he will come with. So mostly, I would say in fighting rather than the pressure to reestablish, because I don't know if there was a pressure or not. This is my hypothesis. I think it was a pressure to reestablish the. So this is my thinking. This is not true. This is what I'm gonna say now. It's my thought. I think they wanted to reestablish the Department of Outreach. And regarding that, I remember talking not only to the Secretary General. We were talking about it, and the Department of Outreach wasn't contributing a lot, according to them. So I would say that it was mostly the infighting and the closure of the Department of Outreach.
All right, thank you very much.
At the time.
Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor back to you. Sorry, Mr. Ranking Member.
Thank you. One moment, please. I will. Mr. Owen, do you have any more questions you'd like to ask?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. PMC, I just have one question for you, and then if you have any closing remarks, you may give those. How confident are you with the current ambassadors and or the executive staff of DOS to get the job done?
Well, my confidence, I have my confidence to a certain extent. For example, DSS, that's by absolute confidence. I mean, they had it. They have continued done their job correctly. The diplomatic security service is the best we have. This is not my words. This is the words of diplomats. So that's good for me. I'm very proud of that department. Maybe I join it in the future. So who knows? I am proud in diplomats. For example, Dr. Doge, which is now Deputy Secretary General. We also have Ribocay, but Ribocay to a certain extent. I mean, I respect him, but to a certain extent. I would say some new Trevor Baggins, the ambassador to Europe. He is doing a great effort in his job. So shout out to him. And I would say the rest have low confidence, apart from the dude from the zone of Asia that I mentioned that he's doing a great job in Asia. Kograta, he's doing a great job. Problem is that we need to get more things going. We need to, as I said, all the things that I will clear it on the closing remarks. But basically, that's my overall note of DOS. Currently, we are on the 6th of December, so I will say I will give it a 5.6 out of 10. Regarding all the.
All right. So not 6-7. Sorry.
Not 6.7,
Understood.
5.6.
With that being said, I have no more questions either. PMC, if you have any closing remarks, you may make those now.
Yeah, so basically with my intervention, I think I gave some ideas on how to approach the problem, and I think many people can agree with me. Again, I don't have hate to people because I don't know what's happening with me hating someone or me not wanting the best for the US. I want the best for the US. I don't have a problem with the US. Well, I hope the US doesn't have a problem with. I came here to help. I came here to. Yeah, so I gave them advice here. So I hope they take it, and I hope they have good luck. I hope they could. I still have faith in the US, but I hope that hope that I have doesn't disappear. That's my worries, and I hope that the things that the questions that I answered, and if anyone has questions, I'll answer them because that's the regarding my intervention. I'll answer questions. If anyone wants help, I'll help. I'm a person willing to. I have been always a person willing to help the US, and it isn't the first time. Not only as ambassador, but also as an advice guy. So, to end my closing remark, I don't have anything against anyone. I just want to help anyone who needs help. And I would like to thank the committee, the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, for the invitation. And I hope that if there is anything I need to address in the future, the said committee can count on me.
Thank you so much. Committee members, I will now hear motions to adjourn this hearing.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Ranking Member.
Representative Owen, you are recognized.
I motion that we adjourn today's hearing.
Is there a second?
I second.
With a sufficient second, this hearing is hereby adjourned. Mr. PMC, thank you for your time.